So I don't think Israel intends to, give any type of real sovereignty to the Palestinians. Now, the issue is the Palestinians are able to resist Israel's offers for sort of bogus peace terms that would really subordinate the Palestinians by a treaty. The Palestinians only are able to resist that because they have support, both material and moral, from other Arab and Islamic states. Namely, they were supported by Iraq. They also are getting support by Iran, also from Saudi Arabia. If all that support were cut out, the Palestinians would see the situation was hopeless. They would give in to any offer Israel offered them. Things would be bad. And from the Likudnik belief, many of the Palestinians would leave the West Bank and Gaza because the situation was bad and really hopeless, and they could do better elsewhere. Now, I might point out that the neoconservatives frequently take a harder line than an Israeli government is willing to take, even a right-wing Israeli government. For example, in 1996, some leading neoconservatives, Douglas Feith, Richard Pearl, and David Wormser, introduced a Middle East war agenda to then incoming Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Of course, Netanyahu is once again Prime Minister. And this was called the Clean Break. The Clean Break agenda, including the call for an Israeli war with Iraq that would bring about regime change. And then presumably this would weaken, by this first move, it would weaken Israel's other enemies in the Middle East. But Iraq was sort of seen as the first step, the key. Well, lo and behold, those aforementioned neoconservatives, Feith, Pearl, and Wormser, were also associated with the Bush II administration. And of course, the United States would carry out something like the Clean Break agenda, but use different justifications. And I might say the Clean Break agenda, when it was presented to Netanyahu, there was nothing about weapons of mass destruction, democracy, and all the things that the neoconservatives sugarcoated it when they were pushing it for the United States. It was strictly for advancing Israeli geostrategic interest. Now, I might point out, since many people attribute the war to oil and the corporate interest and such, the neoconservative position on the Middle East was actually the polar opposite of what had been traditional American foreign policy in the region that was put forth by what I would call the traditional foreign policy establishment. Now, the goal of the traditional American foreign policy establishment was to maintain stability in the Middle East in order to promote the flow of oil to the West. That the flow of Middle Eastern oil was seen to be crucial for the economies of the West. To achieve this, it was necessary to have stability, not terrorists and countries fighting among each other. In contrast, though, the position of the neocons and the Likudniks called for destabilizing these regimes in order to weaken them vis-a-vis Israel. Now, I might point out that in the build-up to the war on Iraq, many of these leaders of the traditional American foreign policy establishment, such as Zbigniew Brzezinski, Brent Scowcroft, and James Baker, were cool, if not outright opposed to that war. And also, this belief, this traditional belief, tends to explain the opposition to the neocon-inspired war in Iraq by the bureaucracies in the CIA and the State Department, and also in the military. I might also add that this traditional foreign policy establishment is also not promoting a war on Iran. It wants diplomacy with Iran. There's a major fear that if America ever attacked Iran, it would cause a major cutoff of oil, in large part because Iran would have the ability to shut the Straits of Hormuz, through which most of the oil that's shipped out of the Gulf must pass through. Now, I might point out that the oil companies themselves, in line with the traditional, foreign policy establishment, naturally want stability for their own exploitation of oil. And actually before 2001, or up until the 2001 September 11th attack, they actually wanted to end the sanctions on both Iran and Iraq, so they would be able to better exploit the oil from those countries. But of course, as situations change, the oil companies are out to make a profit. So if the United States is occupying Iraq, they will want to make a deal with whatever government's running the country. So it's not that they liked Saddam Hussein, but he ran the country. They wanted to deal with him. If there's somebody friendly to the United States or even an American puppet government, they would want to be in good there so they could exploit the situation. Now, I might say that the neoconservatives were quite open about their war agenda in the Middle East. This is why I titled my book, The Transparent Cabal. Sort of an oxymoron, because a cabal is supposed to be secretive. Transparent cabal, open. You can see right through it. So while the neocons were sort of like a group, in some sense like a cabal, in the sense that they were working for a particular goal, working together, most everything they did was quite transparent. So to say that, I or people who hold my view are promoting some type of conspiracy theory, no, this wasn't any conspiracy in the sense that conspiracy means something in secret. This was all done quite open.